last couple of days, sex education and the need for it in India is a debate that's back on the front burner. Everyone, you know, has an opinion, for or against, but everyone has an opinion and will make sure that it's voiced. So we thought this is the perfect fodder for our weekly face-off. Should sex education be mandatory for young India in our schools is what we are asking today. And joining us, Gitanshi and Isha, thanks both so much. They're of course also among those who have strong views and are going to air them even more strongly on the program. Gitanshi, I'll give you a minute to start off. You say yes. Why?
Sex education is the need of the hour. It is in this globalized world, sex education is very important. It can't be neglected. It should be included in school education. In this time, not all parents have much time to interact with their kids and teach them about it. And this is giving rise to many problems such as unwanted pregnancies and STDs and many other. And sex education is not just limited to organs of reproduction. We need to educate our teens about what comprehensive sex education is, how they should be comfortable in it. If we teach them through our scientific manners and in a mature way in schools, there won't be such problems such as we are seeing these days. And moreover, if we don't talk to them, we don't tell them what is happening around them, they are very curious to know that
Right. Your time's up, Gitanshi, but I've got your thought. You're saying it's the need of the hour. There's absolutely no getting away from it. But Isha, you're someone who believes that not quite. Go ahead.
So, I'm not per se against sex education being mandatory in school, but my only point is that there's a big danger of it not being value neutral. What I mean is that with respect to sex education, the way it can be implemented in our schools, there's a huge danger of it being contaminated with the political beliefs or the religious beliefs going on in the country. So it can vary from state to state depending upon which political party is in picture. So I think sex education needs to be it needs to be purely scientific. The way you teach it in school need to be purely scientific, but the way it can be taught or it is being taught currently, you know, I feel that, you know, I will be taught differently when different political parties are in power. Right. So, for example, abstinence can be taught to me when a right-wing conservative party is in power, or a liberal party can taught me, a more liberal party or a more liberal political party will teach me a different method. So, as a child, you know, I am curious. I need to make an informed choice. How will I be able to differentiate? You know, somebody comes and tells me, please abstain from having sex. Is that good enough for me? No, I need to know more. Right. But for example, if, you know, there is a political party right-wing, they'll teach me something else.
Right, your time's up. You've made your point. You made your point quite well. But then, of course, all those who would wonder if that a political party was talking about abstinence, how many would follow? But that's another debate which we'll leave for another day. But, you know, assuming for a moment that we're not getting the shadow of politics on sex education, there are all those who say that there's really no getting away from it, because the point Gitanshi made about, you know, the youngsters are curious. There's always the internet, which has an answer for everything and not always the right answer. So there's a lot of misinformation out there that creates its own challenges.
Yeah. So the thing here is that, you know, internet may be the best place of information for these children, but the debate right now,
questionable.
It's questionable. My point is the question that is being raised here is whether sex education should be mandatory in schools. My point is, who is teaching that? The teachers are not being sensitized enough. You know, if including a chapter or including 10 chapters on protection measures on reproductive organs, that is easy, but are you going to implement it? Are you communicating it well enough? A teacher, it's very difficult for teachers in India specifically or anywhere in the world to be to not color it with their moral or religious beliefs. So you would never know what is being taught. So my point is, you know, unless and until you sensitize the teachers well enough, then there is a big danger of this not being communicated as well as it should have been.
Right, so there is that danger. It of course begins with the teachers. A lot of it is their responsibility. Do you believe, beyond just the chapters, beyond just the theory. I think what is what should form a very important part of sex education should be an open dialogue that the student should be able to have with the teacher or the person who they are conducting this with. Do you believe that we, the society, have reached that point where we can talk openly about key matters like sex?
Exactly. None of the parents, even teachers, nobody wants to talk to them, wants to tell them. They are very curious to know about the changes happening in their body, and they end up browsing internet, and then they land up in the wrong way and in trouble. So there should be some workshops happening around, even in schools and around NCR. We should at least start with the NCR Delhi, that at least people should, if we don't even parents are not much, they don't know much about it.
Right.
So we should teach them and teachers that how to conduct it and how they should go about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, of course, a very natural part for students, for youngsters of a certain age, of course, to have these kind of queries, to have these kind of concerns. But, you know, Isha, what do you call it, sort of our middle class morality or our sensibilities? The fact of the matter is that we, society, haven't been very comfortable when we come to talking about issues of sex. But perhaps this is an idea whose time has come. Having said that, I remember many years ago when this whole idea of sex education was mooted, it was the parents, a large section, who said no. We want our children to stay away. But do you believe that there is any getting away from it?
See, parents, for me, see, ultimately, the society is framed as such where parents are not, a lot of parents are not very comfortable with the way this sex education can be, you know, is implemented. They don't want their children to learn. They ask a question, okay, don't think my class 5 going child is ready for such an education. So my point here is, you know, you make it mandatory, but there needs to be a proper system that needs to be implemented before
Who do you believe should be in charge?
I think in charge, right? Okay, so I can give you an example as to what is happening. Now, there was this program called Adolescent Education Program, which is AEP, which was implemented by CBSE in consultation with NACO and the Health Ministry. This was way back in 2006. But what they did, so this was basically a system where you teach sex education, including it in the textbook as well as in a co-curricular activity kind of way. Now, the problem what has happened here is that, you know, they gave the schools an option whether to mandatorily, whether to accept it or not. Most students do, most schools didn't. Why? Because the parents...
Again, under pressure from
the families.
Right.
So, you know, if you are very, very clear or on implementing this sex education, making it mandatory, then I think that option needs to be removed. You need to tell the schools that, you know, this is something which is very important. Please implement in the way we are telling you. And this system, actually, if you see a lot of schools, but again, there are a lot of all these, how do I put it, better schools, all these international schools who are implementing it more elite schools who are implementing it rather than, you know, the grassroots schools.
Right,
and that
which is
where,
perhaps what we need as much, if not more.
Exactly.
Right, respond to that, Gitanshi. You know, there's sort of, we are a country of contradictions, and there's, you know, an urban-rural divide, a divide between communities, gender differences, and all of that. And it's not, you know, I'm not sure how much people will accept it across the country. Having said that, I do personally believe that it is either now or never.
Exactly. These days, you know, if schools even start about it, that okay, in our school we are starting this comprehensive sex education, they oppose it and they said, no, I don't want my child to study it because it will indulge them in more sexual activities. But researchers show that spreading awareness about it, doesn't increase this promiscuity and incidence of sex education in adolescents age group. If we teach them in a right manner, in a scientific manner and in mature way, like I said earlier, it will be more help to them. They'll be more clear about it. Schools just need to be more, you know about it, that okay, we should carry this forward because it will help their students to grow. And sex education doesn't just provide, you know, information about your sexual activities and your body. It also helps you to be...
Clear your doubts if you have any, or sort of, you know, anything that you've heard just beyond your friend's circle, because at a certain age you perhaps are not really in the know. And of course you made that point about unwanted pregnancies, teen pregnancies, HIV, AIDS, and all those sexually transmitted diseases. But tell me one thing, in your own circle, when think of your years in school, how many people around you do you know would sort of have been open to the idea?
See, that's the point that I was coming next to. Coming from Gitanshi's point, the idea itself is good, and the idea of implementing sex education where you teach them not just about the theory but about the changes in your body and the psychological effects that it is causing you. It's just an idea. My point is, in the current curriculum there is nothing that is being taught like that. I went to school. In my class 10th book, there was a particular chapter which was on reproductive systems.
That was in biology.
No biology, but there was a system. There was a particular chapter. There were 2-3 chapters on birth control measures, and but that was how it was taught to us. It was taught with respect to population control. Now you don't teach it. You put it in a textbook.
You personalize it.
You personalize. You teach it in a very general way. I read it. I don't understand it. The teacher is embarrassed to teach me. The students are embarrassed to ask questions. So you don't create a system around you where people are having like an interactive communication,
an open conversation about something so natural.
So the idea is really good, but can you implement it like that? If you can, very well.
Right. So in fact, I think that is something that has remained constant, because that's what I remember from my years in school also. The teacher would be embarrassed, and it would be a tiny paragraph, and we sort of skirt it, and the backbenchers would snigger, and the ones in front would sort of not know where to look. You'd avoid eye contact, and everyone knew what was being discussed, everyone knew what was being talked about. So do you believe that this hesitance is something that we can overcome? We need to start somewhere.
This is the right time to start, because this is the world where this is the era of social media and internet age. If you will not teach them, they will obviously go and browse internet. There are many other sources, and they will definitely pick the wrong information, and then they'll be in troubles. So this is the right time to start it, with workshops going around in schools in all over Delhi. And everywhere we
perhaps other parts of the country also roll it out, you're saying, right?
Yeah. And even in surveys, it has been seen that if we teach them this comprehensive sex education, many students have become more confident about themselves, about their
sexuality,
about their other relationships. This by teaching this sex education, this girl and boy divide will be over. There won't be any, like you said, harsher talks and all that. It will be all, in a limit. They won't be like more blushing about it. Okay, we don't have to. We are laughing and snickering and all.
Absolutely. I'm running out of time, but Isha, of course, there are all those who would also say that, again, it depends when we talk about these divides and about, overcoming this sort of hesitance, as it were. There are all those who would also say, but again, it depends on where you're looking at, communities, regions, rural, urban, etc. But eventually, do you see that, we will, as a society, perhaps mature to the point where we will be able to talk about it? I mean, we didn't get to a country of 1 billion plus for nothing.
We need to reach a point where this is an open topic. This becomes like a topic of open discussion. And I think one thing that can be done and that should be done is that if you are including sex education in your textbook, so schools should definitely ensure that there is a counseling service that's provided to the students, because when you read something, you have 10 questions to ask. But as a student, I'm really embarrassed to ask that question, or I'm curious, but I don't know what to ask, who to ask. So if you ensure that there's a counseling service in place, a student can go ask various questions about his or her body, about his or her sexual preferences, or any other questions that come to their head, rather than go to the internet and look and get
all sorts of dubious information. You're
all
not sure what's coming your way.
Exactly.
Right, and what you sort of maybe basing a large part of the rest of your life on. That's, of course, a problem. So sex education, yes, it's needed, but how are we going to roll it out? Who are we going to address? Who is going to be in charge? And is it now about time that we overcome our reluctance to talk about it and sort of not take the bull by its horns, but confront matters as we stand? Well, Gitanshi, Isha, thanks very much for being on the show. Clearly, the last word on this hasn't been spoken, and I doubt if this is going to be the end of the debate. But these are, of course, the thoughts that we have here. Keep sharing your feedback with us. Remember, you can always write to us. For the moment, we slip into a quick break. Lots more on the other side.